Remake Rewind.
Hey guys, welcome to Remake Rewind, the podcast where we talk about whether movies should or should not have been remade. Today we have a special guest, but first I'll introduce the first two that are normally on the podcast. We have Alex and Mike. What's up, guys?
How you doing, bud?
Hey.
Not bad, guys. Thanks for asking. Not you, Alex. You didn't ask. But today we have Cody. Cody, our special guest from another podcast, Nerds with Friends. Cody, tell us about yourself, sir.
Well, first of all, I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller. Super excited. But yeah, I also do a podcast, and we kind of talk about, things in the nerd world. So comic books, video games, movies that have come out. We actually, did we've done similar things to this show where we talk about remade movies that need to be made, but only on like a one episode. So you guys,
we
really
own this space.
Inspiring. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
This is us.
Once I found out about you guys, I was like, ooh, can't do that anymore.
You can always, just jump on our podcast if there's something you want to do.
Yeah, well, I've always got ideas. A big theme in our show is that I always have like alternate scripts that I've thought of for different movies. I'm like, dude, this could have been so much better. But yeah, I'm excited to do this. I'm excited to talk about Hellboy.
Oh, yeah. Well, that brings us to our movie. So obviously we are doing Hellboy, which was, 2004, and the brand spanking new one that came out like a couple weeks ago, 2019. And a rough watch.
Rough watch.
Yeah, rough watch. Throwback. Yeah, let's just get into it. Mike, you doing one since I'm hosting?
Yeah, I was going to do the second movie, but...
Oh, all right, fine. Alex, go ahead.
Oh, wait. Okay, so I got one from Film Fan UK. And it says, when the Nazis attempted to use black magic during the last day of
That's
World War
racist.
II. Monkey.
Which part?
Black magic?
Yeah, that is the Nazi part.
No.
A monkey-like demon is thrown into the world. Trevor discovers that the creature and rescues it from any danger. The creature grows up and goes by the name of Hellboy. Working in secrecy, Hellboy works to rid any evil. When familiar faces from the past appears, it's going to take more than Hellboy to stop them.
More than Hellboy. You lost me like halfway through, Alex, but that was kind of long. But yeah, I mean, that seemed kind of correct. We got Ron Perlman as Hellboy in this one, right?
Immediately,
Yeah.
as much as I loved these movies back, 15 years ago when they came out, watching it in 2019, 15 years later, being a little bit removed from it, I actually have a problem with Ron Perlman as Hellboy because they say that he's supposed to be in his 20s.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no way you could Hellboy looks exactly like Ron Perlman. Like he just looks like Ron Perlman in red makeup. And to say that he's in his late 20s is absurd. I don't buy it.
I mean, he's a demon.
Yeah, demons age. Maybe they age quickly.
Imagine when he's older. Oof.
Well, no, they said he's over 60 years old, but appears to be in his 20s. Think reverse dog years. That's a quote.
Yeah.
Well, Ron Perlman, you did great.
They've been 20 really, really hard years.
Really rough. Just smoked a lot of cigars.
It's that he didn't know how to smoke, apparently.
Right.
Yeah. Smokes constantly.
Yeah. One thing I did like, though, Mike Mignola and Guillermo Del Toro revealed who they thought a perfect Hellboy would be at the same time, and they both said Ron Perlman.
You're like, John Stamos. Did we just friends?
Ron Perlman.
I think he's great. I think he's great in the role. I just maybe don't say he looks like he's 20 years old.
No,
I mean, it's something that he also mentioned too, and like behind the scenes, he's like, "I'm really old for this role," and the cast, like, they did a modeling of him as Hellboy, and they wanted him when he was younger, so they had to try to craft it a younger Ron Perlman.
The prosthetics tried to smooth things out a little bit, but still, it just looked like Ron Perlman kind of looked the same forever. He's always looked like he's 50.
I feel like he's like his underjaw is just like protruding more and more as he ages.
More and more like a bulldog.
No, it's just that his face is running away. It's just receding back into his skull.
Oh man.
Well, one thing that's crazy is if he's in his late 20s, but he was born during the Nazi times. Like, what year does this movie take place?
I think it's supposed to be at that time contemporary. I think it's supposed to be the early 2000s because they say he's been around for over 60 years.
Oh, he's been around for 60 years. I had that backwards.
Yeah, so they say he'd been around for 60 years, but appears to be 20.
Yeah,
I guess that makes sense.
I'd say like
His
late
dad's
40s
so
at
old.
best.
Right.
You know?
Which is
that's
how
still
old he was
good.
when he did it.
It's still good, you know. It's still looking pretty nice for 60
Right.
years old.
Just say, or even like, I'll buy a rough 35 because he's been smoking like crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Dries out the skin.
Right.
Let's talk about the movie a little bit, guys.
We haven't
Right,
criticized Ron Perlman's skin.
All right, this new podcast is all about Ron Perlman now.
You want to talk about the movie Double D?
I'll change the. I mean, I figure we should probably
Okay.
talk about the movie.
So he's fireproof, and Selma Blair's fireproof, right?
Yep.
How come their
Yep.
clothes don't burn?
Fireproof clothes.
They become one.
I'm pretty sure that looks like they're magic casting clothes or
They
something.
have like an aura around them that is
A
fireproof.
pinky
So
bone.
he's like, they're like Superman. They just protrude like an inch aura that protects their clothing.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It becomes one with
But
them.
then how come that doesn't work for sharp shit? Like,
It's not fire.
It's only fireproof.
It's not.
not
Yeah, exactly.
tear-proof.
It's not.
It's not.
You got to choose one or the other.
got it. All right, you can direct the episode, Double D. I apologize.
They didn't want to go for
That's
the hard
fine. I
R
mean-
rating like the new Hellboy did.
My favorite thing was that they immediately got the demon on board with a baby Ruth.
Baby Ruth.
Oh man, that's how you tame demons.
That's how you.
Baby
That's
Ruth.
how you tame
Yeah.
a chunk as well from the Goonies.
Yeah.
Baby Ruth.
That's what you did in the 40s,
to buy
50s,
more of
60s.
those.
You tamed wild creatures and scary things with candy. E.T. also tamed with
Well,
candy.
what I like
pieces.
to say, he had 2 candy bars in his jacket.
On this mission, he's bringing baby Ruths. 2 of them, 2 full bars.
I was
While
like,
he's,
damn,
like,
you know,
at
sometimes I
war.
carry 1, I feel like a fat ass, but if I had 2,
Then you could just say you carry it for a purpose. It's not for you. Just in case you encounter a demon you need to tame.
Why do you have so many candies in your
Right.
pocket? Oh, you know, in case I run into any
Going demon
demons.
is that a candy bar in your pocket? Oh, 2.
It's a little nutty. Good one, David.
Zing.
We tame Hellboy.
I
and
mean, we're
he
skipping over
becomes a
that
weapon.
opening scene entirely. That opening scene is rad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, talk about them.
So, they show up to this, place where there's ley lines, which, is where all the supernatural elements cross in our world. And
Obviously.
Professor Broom is, explaining why he's there. And, like, the soldier guy's like, I don't believe in any of that shit kind of thing. And then they, see Rasputin, and he's got a mechanical Hellboy hand trying to open up a portal. And then you see Cronin, who's, like, Hitler's main assassin and also head of the Thule Society, which is, like, the occult worshipping, aspect of the Nazi regime. And, like, they end up having, like, a little mini battle, and Thule is just like, or Cronin is just like merciless. He's got like Assassin's Creed blades before Assassin's Creed was a thing. He doesn't care about getting hurt at all. Like when Broom finally throws a grenade to try to close the portal, he just
It's as if you could say
nonchalantly tries to
he's,
just get the grenade.
Bulletproof.
And then he gets
not
thrown and
bulletproof, he
impaled
just-
and walks off. That's a terrifying character and a really cool character. And I think they did a great job setting him up throughout the movie to show that this guy is going to be very hard to deal with. And he's just creepy because he just stalks and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. He's pretty.
And when they kind of reveal him
Mm-hmm.
later on in the movie too, he's just like he's got these other skills that are like, oh, really, really out there.
Yeah.
He,
Even
like,
without his
Surgically
suit on.
removed his eyelids and stuff. Ah,
And his lips. And,
so great.
his instead of
So
blood, he has
dry
gears.
all the
He
time.
kind of reminds me of that character from Soul Calibur. There-
Voldo?
Yeah, I think so.
that's
I don't remember any characters from Soul
that's
Calibur.
the
I don't
bondage guy that's like super skinny and like has like a suit.
Yeah, and he like walks, like he crab walks, but he has like those weird
Yeah.
knife things too, and he
Oh,
just
yeah, I do remember that guy.
It's a
Very
good
similar.
comparison.
But yeah, that was a cool scene, and they actually copied parts of it for the newer movie, which was interesting. And I think it goes to show
absolutely.
how good it was. You can't really do much better.
Well, and,
introduce
I like
both a
how-
character and a world.
And a world, absolutely. And then I like how it syncs up when like John Hurt, I think, is incredible. He's a great actor. He's obviously in a ton of really great movies, Aliens, this, and he's narrating the opening, and then as they go to like take the picture, the narration and then him talking line syncs up, and it's a really cool kind of opening. I really enjoyed the opening of this movie.
Yeah, the opening's very great. It's very it's taken some like scenes from the comics because that's how it is. Like the one thing that the new Hellboy is a bit more accurate, but like that gauntlet is from the comic book. It's hella is really good. Damn it, there goes that hella.
All right, so we got opening scene covered. Then we get Hellboy.
Yeah,
right?
we did get Hellboy.
Hellboy is tamed by the baby Ruths.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
He loves them because who
And
doesn't? Chocolate.
We move
nougat.
into modern day society where Hellboy is an urban legend like Bigfoot.
Yep, I like that. And you have why am I blanking on his name right now?
Hellboy.
No, not Hellboy.
Jeffrey
Tambor. It's just like he does not
yeah.
exist kind of thing. He's just like the government like hush man. I thought he was great in this film. I love Jeffrey Tambor's character in this movie.
He's great in everything.
I mean, he's kind of the same character,
Yeah.
but he is.
I ended up watching the second one, Hellboy and the Golden Army, yesterday too, just because I really got on like a Hellboy kick, obviously, and he's great in that one as well. Like his character evolves a little bit, but he's great. I really love his character in this movie.
He's hilarious.
Where he's just kind of like the bureaucratic asshole, and like every movie like this, he kind of comes around a little bit towards the end, and they
Not
kind of have
entirely.
some
That's because he
camaraderie.
saved his life.
Was that?
Only because he saved his life.
He did, but
Yeah.
then he also showed him how to properly light a cigar later. So now they're
Yeah.
friends.
That's true.
That is pretty cool. Yeah.
I don't know, but-
That was
Yeah,
a
he
cool
has a
moment.
really good arc. Like I like that in the sequel, he's trying to like understand the world, which because like so in this one he's very resistant to it. He wants to shut it down. He thinks it's like a farce and all that. And the sequel, it's about him like accepting like there's like a scene. Well, I don't want to talk about the sequel, but yeah, he's a great character.
I mean, you're right. In the sequel, we can do it briefly. There's a scene where they're like a long take where him and Abe are walking down a hallway, and you see all this like weird shit happening, and he just wants to be part of the world now, and he wants Hellboy to like him, and Hellboy doesn't like him still, and he struggles with that because he's still a government man, and he still wants these paranormal entities to follow the rules, but he also still wants to be very much part of that world. And yeah, it is an interesting arc, and I agree with what you said, Alex. Good stuff. Everything you said.
Good job, Alex. We're proud of you.
Hey,
And not only that,
validation.
one thing too is I think that between him and Agent Myers, like that's kind of our introduction to Hellboy's world and the BPRD.
Yeah.
So we're kind of
Yeah, I agree.
seeing it through their eyes. So
And
they're
Agent
both
Myers
outsiders.
wasn't in the comic books. He was made
No,
for that
yeah.
exact purpose for the movie.
Just to bring us
Yeah,
in.
it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Agent John Mayer.
He did try to steal the
He
throne.
did. I did like that scene when he was. So one of the big things in this movie is Liz, played by Selma Blair, is a pyrokinetic, even though she doesn't like that term. She's not
Sounds like someone
living.
who's crazy.
She's not living at the bureau, and Hellboy's in love with her. And Agent Myers wants to try to help Hellboy and kind of get into that world. So he tries, like, I can help her out. I can get her here. And his way of getting her back is, hey, you've got a really beautiful name. She's like, it's Elizabeth. It's the 60% of the world has the name Liz. And he's like, I think it's impressive. My name is John.
He's like, you got me beat. My name's John.
He's trying to get into that
John.
world.
Hey.
Hey.
Well, so can I talk about Liz for a little bit? Her character kind of confuses
Yeah.
me. Does she have
No, she
control
doesn't.
or
No.
not? So how come we're jumping towards the
do
end here.
what you
but,
gotta do,
like,
bud.
When
Ask your question.
when John slaps her after
Yeah, he
she
does.
tells him to,
Yeah, that was nice.
she gets all flamey, but it seems like she can control it.
Not really.
At that time.
She's just
She
letting
needs to be
it
upset.
go. She
I-
needs to
I
be
think-
upset, and she's just trying to get angrier in that situation. But
no, I get that she's
before
getting angry to
Rasputin,
get it out.
before
but-
Rasputin visited her, she was able, like, she demonstrates she's able to control it more.
To an
She even
extent.
says it, and then when Rasputin did his thing, I think that's what fucked her up. And it was like a mentality
relapsed.
kind of thing. She's like, oh, I don't have control, and that's why she like needed to rely on John slapping her.
but even in the second
Slap me.
movie, and I know we're not going to talk about it, the same thing happens. There's a point where she goes to, engulf an entire room in flames, and she's like, you can see she's not quite able to control it, and she tells everyone, you guys should be running, because she can't really direct it. It's just like an all or nothing kind of thing.
Yeah. One
I
thing
think
that's
she
kind of
can,
interesting. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think she can control it to an extent where she can just maybe keep it on her hands and maybe do like a fireball. But other than, if she's going to do more than just like a single fireball, it's just like she's going to destroy an entire room. I think that's really what it is.
What I think is interesting about her character though is that, okay, so she grows up in the BPRD where everyone has their own special room that is, resistant to their specific power. You got Abe in his water tank, you got Hellboy in his like man cave. And so you gotta imagine that she had like a fireproof room, no polyester or anything like that, and so she leaves that safe environment to go to a normal mental institution.
Right. I gotta question that judgment.
Yeah, it's like you've seen those places, polyester everywhere. I mean, that thing is like, it is just ready to go up in flames. And so she goes there to get better. And I mean, I guess it kind of works because she does say she's getting better and more control. But like, why would first of all, they let her go to that place when she's just going to endanger all these mental patients?
It's wildly irresponsible.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sure it was like an arrangement they had or something, because like then they contacted, or they were talking to John Mayer about like the situation.
Well, they mentioned that like they have her heavily sedated on like Thorazine, which is the same thing that Bill Murray's character uses in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
When he goes to date rape Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
What a
I don't remember that scene, but it could have been
he does.
80s or a different time.
In Ghostbusters, there's a scene when he doesn't know for sure, but like something that Sigourney Weaver's character says, I can't remember the character's name at all, but she says that there's some sort of entity at her apartment, and then I guess Egon says something along the lines of like, it's possible that there's stuff going on. So he shows up for what he thinks is a date, and it turns out she just happens to be possessed and a little bit more aggressive, and he like Thorazines her. And it's the same drug that they use in this. They're like, oh yeah, our Thorazine budget has gone through the roof with Liz here.
Yeah. Well,
Dr. Venkman is a creep.
Always got to have a little Thorazine just in case.
Just
calms everyone right down.
Yeah, whenever I need it, I just go to Cody.
Not on the show, David.
All right, so that's Liz. After we got John Mayer, we didn't talk about Professor Broom
He's
at
got
all.
the cancer.
He's got the baby Ruths.
Yeah.
He got the cancer from all the baby Ruths he ate.
And then we got Abe Sapien, who we met when John Mayer.
Abe Sapien looks so fucking good.
He's
I really
his
like
character.
incredible.
I just love it. He's perfect, and I love I forget what's the guy's name who plays
Doug Jones. Doug Jones is the body. David.
He didn't do
did
the voice this one, but he did the voice in the second one.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's honestly not that different. Like
it's pretty. Yeah, I was trying to listen for it this time around, see if I can hear it. But
like you can definitely hear David Hyde Pierce because he's so famous as Dr. Niles Crane in Frasier, and I love that show. But Doug Jones also kind of has like a nerdy, higher pitched voice. Like it's not that different. Where it's like if you weren't really paying attention, the movie comes out like 5 years apart, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's possible that you wouldn't really notice, but. Abe Sapien and just Doug Jones in general is incredible. What he's willing to do for his friend GDT.
Yeah, because he was in Pan's Labyrinth too, right?
Yeah, and Shape of Water.
Yeah. And Shape of Water, he was Abe Sapien in that as well. Abe Sapien origin story.
They tried to make it canon. Mike Mignola's like, no.
Right. No. What's interesting about this version of Abe Sapien though is he is like a little bit more OP than like the comic version, because he's not a psychic in the comic book version, but they give him a lot more to do in this one, which I think it works for the universe. I also like the little thing that they found him the day that Abe Lincoln died, so that's how we got Abe Sapien.
Mm-hmm.
So he's super old too. Yeah.
So one thing that bothered me about Abe Sapien was that his voice didn't change from when he was in the water to when he was out on land. So like he would be talking to these people through the glass when he's in the water. And
That could have been a psychic
they
thing,
could
though,
all hear
maybe.
him clearly.
Oh yeah.
I guess.
And also,
Just
sound travels through water better than it does in the air, you dickhead.
And through glass.
Yes, actually.
What? Through
Yes,
water and glass.
actually.
You would hear him exactly the
Yes.
same as if he were speaking in
Yes,
front of you.
absolutely.
It's just the fishes
we need to try
refuse to
this
talk
thing.
to us. That's why.
I think this requires an experiment.
The problem is our vocal
It'll-
cords aren't designed to work, but if we could talk normally in water, it would sound pretty damn good.
I'm pretty sure we could talk
No, we
normally in
can't.
water.
The way we
If we
breathe,
really
and the way the
wanted to.
water hits it changes the way our tongue and lips move. You're an idiot.
You're an idiot.
But you can get underwater speakers that sound incredible. So I was on the swim team all through high school, and
Humble
during
brag.
meets we would actually play. We would have water like speakers underneath, so while people were warming up, you can listen to the music. And then we had some of the racing stuff on there, so when they would, they'd be talking about who's winning, you can hear it while you're in the water. So it sounded incredible. You can go fuck yourself, Double D.
So what you're saying is Abe Sapien has speakers
He,
in his lungs.
he has
Yeah,
a
underwater
physiology.
speakers.
His physiology. I can't even talk. His physiology allows for him to speak in the water. He's a fish man.
It just bothered me that it was exactly the
He
same.
has the
that there was no
physiology to
distortion
do
at all.
it.
It bothered me.
It's because David's used to Aquaman. Aquaman, they put some
Exactly.
reverb into it.
Yeah.
I think we need to start actually like getting through the meat of this movie because we've been going for a little bit. So I guess like the overall arc of the movie is Rasputin, which we see come back covered in blood, which was like once again a
That was
really
a cool
scene.
cool intro, yeah.
Yeah, a really cool scene.
He's
Like
like,
this-
give me my code, and then they stab the shit out of him. He's
yeah,
like, ugh.
and you see the blood go through all the grooves and like the stone thing.
Yeah.
And Rasputin comes back, and then they need to get Samael, which is the resurrection hound, which is just like a giant animatronic man costume thing, which looks
Which was cool.
fucking rad. And every time they kill one, two more come back, like kind of like a Hydra. And I kind of want to talk about the first time they fight one because Hellboy's indestructible in this movie.
Yeah.
Funny thing about that is that Ron Perlman broke a rib filming.
Oh,
this.
did he? I mean, that makes sense. Like, he's getting thrown around like crazy. But Hellboy himself gets thrown around. He gets hit by a train over and over and over again, and nothing's wrong with him. It's kind of weird. The only time we see him get, like, blood drawn is when, like, a small, shack thing in a subway falls on him. He has a little bit of blood.
Well, he
But
has,
other than that,
no,
he's, like,
he has blood in
indestructible.
the first scene too, because like
And
when he was
the
talking to
little
Liz,
worm
you see
baby
him like
stabs
bleeding
him.
a little bit at his arm.
And
But
then-
I do like
Oh,
that
when
he's
but that's because, the acid from the animal
Yeah.
that got on him.
Yeah,
But
the
I mean,
little
from
worm
physical
thing is
blows,
like-
he's virtually indestructible.
I feel like he's kind of like Bruce Willis in Die Hard. Like he always comments like, "Oh, I'm gonna be sore in the morning" and stuff like that. He's like cracking his bones.
He's no visible damage, but he's just like, yep, that hurt.
Just to let us know.
Right.
I'm
But
sure
it-
some of
it's-
that comes from just not wanting to redo the makeup a million times.
Right.
Per
But
scene.
I get that to an extent, but it's just, he gets thrown. There's a scene where he gets in the subway, gets punched, and he goes through like 5 walls. And he just gets
Comically
up.
so.
Yeah, he gets up, no problem. He gets hit by a train in the face over and over and over again.
His horns were glowing when from
Yeah.
friction.
And, everything. And then he goes, ah, hot. I thought he was fireproof.
Yeah, that was a little strange. Like, obviously, you're like on fire half of this movie. You
Right.
should be fine with fire.
Right, with the heat.
hot
Well, and then the
ones.
thing is later on, and he says, oh, this is going to hurt. I'm going to be sore in the movie, or sore in the morning. At the end of the movie, he kills like one of the 7 elder gods with a grenade belt, but he's
blowing
completely
himself up.
fine. And it's like, okay,
Yeah, totally.
I can
fine.
understand
But he's like, this is gonna
the
hurt.
fire. He's immune to the fire, but not the force. Like when there's an explosion, a grenade or any kind of problem, it's not the fire that does the damage. It's the explosion. It's the outward force.
Yeah,
I-
I'm sure his like insides are just turned to mush.
But
It's like when Luke Cage got shot in the face.
with the shotgun.
Yep.
Yep.
That's what happens.
So ultimately, the whole movie is Rasputin trying to manipulate people to get Hellboy to Moscow. So he manipulates to get Liz back with him. He has Cronin pretend to be dead to get back into the bureau, who ends up killing.
Wait, I have an important question. This one's really important. what happened to the Sammy eggs in the under the train sequence? Because they never went back to that, and I don't think they referenced it.
They do say that they are going to go back in the morning.
Oh, that's
Yeah, they
Leave
say
it
that
till
they're
the
going to go
morning.
back.
Didn't
And-
like more appeared and Abe was just like hiding.
No, I think what happened
Yeah.
is I think we're supposed to take for granted through movie editing that they went and got the eggs and everything's good. And I think some of the eggs may
NBD.
have also moved because all those creatures ended up in Moscow. So I think they might have actually just the creatures themselves might
Transplanted
have
them?
transported the eggs,
Yeah.
like responsible
You
parents.
just sucked them back up.
Not like the
this is an
parents in Pet
unsafe
Sematary.
environment. We have a red monkey coming after us. Let's go ahead, scoop these babies back up.
I also like how Myers, and in the first action scene that he's in, he's like trying to cross the street and his arm gets hit by a car and he's
Yeah.
completely fine. He's typing later, like he's got like a bandage on his hand, but he's typing on a computer like nothing. Like if your hand got hit by a car and your bones weren't shattered, you would have broken bones and a broken wrist at the very least. You're not typing with that hand.
Well, not John Mayer.
He's got to play later, so you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So Hellboy,
His,
when we
his
learn,
hand is very trained for
oh
this.
sorry, go ahead.
What?
No,
No, okay. So when we learn that Hellboy is fireproof, because he says, "I'm fireproof, you're not." When he kills the first Hellhound, like actually kills it to the point where it splits into the two fireballs.
Yeah.
They're in the subway, right?
Yep.
And Hellboy grabs the third rail, which is electricity, not fire.
Yeah.
So electricity and
Electricity
fire
is
are the
just a
same in this
form of
world?
fire.
No, it's not.
Yeah, didn't you watch Avatar: The Last
Well-
Airbender?
Yeah, come on. It's just how you think about it.
Oh, okay.
So if he believes it's fire, it's fine.
Oh, he was getting electrocuted that whole time, but the fire didn't hurt him.
It woke him up.
Yeah.
I
good.
mean, that's essentially. What is this? I have a note that says, "If I had legs, I'd kick you."
No, that's the corpse.
That was
Oh,
yeah.
Which is a
that
great
was weird.
Ivan. I really like that. I was a big fan of that.
No,
part.
it was really cool. This the weird zombie thing.
So this movie
Just carrying him
has
around.
chunks from different
would've-
sections of the comic, and
I would've been
that's
better off
also one of
dead.
them too. That's
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
really
poor
funny. I
guy.
really liked that. And then basically he ends up just at this like temple, and then it becomes like a Tomb Raider, Assassin's Creed level where there's like pendulum swinging that you have to dodge, and everybody ultimately gets killed except for Manning. He gets saved and teaches him about the cigars. And then there's this weird scene where, John Mayer slaps Liz, and so she's like, "You should be running." She kills all of the Samaels and all their eggs, and she ends up kissing Hellboy, and like they're on fire. And the only thing I could think of is like, that was hot. And then they
good one.
defeat Rasputin very easily, and
Well,
then
we
just
also-
like a weird
well,
god comes out
kinda-
of him.
We
He-
kind
he
of
beat-
missed that Dr. Broom gets killed
Yeah.
by Cronin also,
yeah.
which
that
that was
that
actually a pretty
scene-
good like emotional scene for
Oh,
him.
it was.
because
I'm
he's
ready.
like, "Do you want to know his real name?" He's like, "No, I know his name."
I just call him
son.
son.
Get you in the feels.
And then he's like, "I'm ready," and Rasputin's like, "It'll be painless." And then Cronin just stabs him in the back of the neck.
There was a little pain.
That's definitely painful.
Yeah.
Unless I don't know. Unless he like. went
Where
through his
was
spine.
Abe
I
at
guess
that? Oh no, Abe was in like the back to tank at that time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was getting healed up.
Yeah, because he got all mauled and smashed by
But that
the
was
creature.
that was the crazy. I like how Cronin there, has that like little gear inside of him, and oh my god, there's another siren coming. There's a little gear inside of him that's like stirring up his innards and stuff to keep him alive, and he can pull it out and still be alive, and then wakes up, puts it back in. So what's the point of the little gear thing?
It's
I
it's
don't
what
know.
helps pumps
It's
it.
because he doesn't have blood.
Helps
Yeah,
mix
exactly.
his sand
Keeps the-
around.
Keeps the sand killed.
Well, no, they say that is his blood. That like he's been around for way too many decades. That his blood has turned to dust.
Yeah, gross. Is that,
Yeah,
is that
so
what
it
happened?
keeps his dust pumping.
A dust pump. It's like a little air
Yeah,
I
filter.
did
dust
like.
pump.
I
Separates
thought it was
the-
really clever how they're down in the sewers investigating the Samaels, and he manipulates Hellboy into chasing him, and then he comes back. Cronin goes back to kill like the guards or the other agents. And one of the agents is really good friends with Hellboy, and is not his handler anymore because they were too good of friends. His name is Clay. So he pops up and he starts stabbing. Like, Cronin just starts stabbing Clay over and over and over again. Yeah. But let's
really viciously. I'm like, man, he like swipes at everyone. But for Clay, he's like, stab.
Well, no, but there was the plan there was because he was up close, he allowed Clay to shoot him a bunch of times. And then he did the whole thing where he pulled all his gears to make it, like a time release to be dead. He falls right next to him. So it looks like Clay killed him. It looks like they had a little scrape, a little scuffle. And they took each other out. Clay did good. Good job, Clay. You'd get a Medal of Honor if you could, but you're dead. And
he gets his name on the wall.
Yeah, and that's kind of it. But I thought that was really clever how he didn't just drop dead, but he made it look like Clay did it.
Right.
He made it look like there was a successful fight. The details in this movie are really good.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's what makes the movie.
Good job, Guillermo.
DDT, motherfucker. But I mean, I think we hit all the major beats of the movie.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie. Like it's really good. They've got a sequel. This movie I think this one cost like $60 million to make. Yeah. And it wasn't like it didn't do a ton of money in the theaters. Like I worked at the movie theater when this came out, and it wasn't packed. Like the first weekend, it was full, but it was never like a sold out movie. But it did really well on home release, and then it got the sequel. And the sequel did really well in terms of like critical success. It's still considered one of the best comic book movies of all time. It just once again barely made its money back. So I think that one cost like $80 million, and it only did like $140 million or something like that. So by the time you factor in promotional and stuff like that, it barely made its money back. So that's why we never got the third one.
But it also did really well on DVD release. And the story about the third one is that it was just going to cost too much. What Guillermo wanted, because it's going to be the end of the trilogy with the
apocalypse.
And yeah. And then the studio's like, well, we want to do something more smaller budget. So they gave Guillermo a chance to do the reboot or be an executive producer, but he just turned it down. He's like, oh,
well, there was a thing a couple years ago where Guillermo Del Toro and Ron Perlman, because Ron Perlman's vocally wanted to do a third movie this entire time. And Guillermo Del Toro, up until really by the time he started working on Shape of Water, wanted to do one. So he said, like on Twitter and all his social media, like, I will go to Universal one more time and ask for Helga, shut up. It's like yelling.
That's a weird ask.
He goes to Universal and gives it one more go, and it just clearly wasn't going to happen. And then now we're getting the reboot, or did get the reboot, which we'll talk about soon.
I heard it was shortly after that too. It was like
weeks.
It was like a month later, 3 weeks later, or something like that.
I remember.
Oh, just kidding. We're actually doing it.
Yeah, I remember when Guillermo Del Toro on Twitter and Ron Perlman on there, because I actually followed them. They say, hey, we're going to go for it. And then I remember about a month later hearing about the new reboot. I was like, whoa, what the fuck happened? And then, they both came out like, yeah, it was amicable. We just couldn't find a way to make it work. Because this new one, I think they only spent like $50 million on it. So they spent less than they did on the first movie.
It shows.
So, I believe it.
Yeah.
It was mostly on catering.
Well, since we're talking about the new one, Mike, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Hey,
real
why
quick?
don't you go fuck yourself?
Hey,
no, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry, buddy. You're a good friend. All right, so this one is by Dominic Henriette and Abdul. And for some reason, the and Abdul is in all caps. So I think...
Abdul!
Yeah, so based on the graphic novels by Mike Mignola, Hellboy, caught between the worlds of supernatural and human, battles an ancient sorceress bent on revenge.
Yep. That's
so you guys want to know when I figured this wasn't going to be a good movie?
The intro.
No, when they cast Mila Jovovich in the movie.
I like her. It's just Fifth Element.
Name one good movie besides
like
The Fifth Element she's been in.
The first Resident Evil was really good.
It's not a good movie. It's entertaining, but it's not a good movie.
You guys didn't like Ultraviolet?
That's
nope, definitely did not like that movie. The Three Musketeers, which we've covered on here, terrible movie. Mila Jovovich is not in good movies. She just keeps doing all those shitty movies that her husband does.
That's true.
That's her husband's fault.
Like she's gonna be. It's smart.
They're gonna be making a Monster Hunter movie, and I already know it's gonna be shit because she's in it.
And her husband's directing.
And her husband's directing it. But The other thing that I was like kind of excited on when I saw Ian McShane, but the thing with Ian McShane is there's a 50% chance it's going to be good or 50% chance it's going to be bad when he's in it. Like, he does a lot of shit movies, like that Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Honestly, the Death Race movie that he's in isn't good. It's entertaining, but it's kind of a whack movie. And he's been in a bunch of other movies that are just not good. But then, like, he's in John Wick, which is great. But John Wick is just an amazing action movie. But, like, the premise of the movie is kind of absurd.
He's in Deadwood. He's fucking amazing.
Deadwood's great,
Deadwood.
and that's my point. He's in Deadwood as well, which is incredible. He's in... I mean, he's one of those actors that's in so many things.
What was that
American
one?
Gods.
Hot Rod or something like that? He
Hot
was
Rod, he's the
hilarious.
dad. He's good in that. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's great. He's either and I think he's always good. Like, he doesn't do a bad performance, but that doesn't necessarily mean he picks the best projects.
Right. He has a bad agent.
I think he just likes to have fun.
And I think he's also at that age where he's just like, I want to just keep working, and I'd rather be working than not working.
Mm-hmm.
Which I mean, that's what a lot of actors do. Morgan Freeman is that basically said that he and Samuel Jackson, they just do every fucking script that comes their way because it's like, we're old as fuck. We're not going to be able to do this forever. So they just do it. Ian McShane was also in that really shitty Snow White and the Huntsman movie. He played a dwarf in that. It was weird.
He did. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
And I think,
that.
honestly, in
That
this
was really
movie,
weird.
he was, acting his balls off on certain scenes. Like, he has kind of a cool, he really makes a scene good when he's in it. It's just some of the words that they've written for him and the environment around
shit.
him. Yeah, the dialogue is so bad.
Well, and like the opening narration was kind of weird. Like, it seemed like they were trying way too hard to be like, this movie's going to be more hip and edgy and fun.
Because they say fuck in the beginning.
Yeah, like I feel like they recorded his dialogue, his voiceover, like, nope, this has got to be fast and edgy and fun, and they like sped it up and changed the tempo a little bit because it's just like, it's really fast and it's just, the language in it is just weird. Like, it's trying way too hard to be Deadpool.
Yeah, and just falling flat on his face.
Like, I think that's what this movie suffered from, was trying to be Deadpool, because they really leaned in on the R rating, and it's.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that, but all the jokes that Hellboy had in this movie were just not well timed.
Yeah, I think that's a directing thing, because the thing that's weird about that was, so the first trailer, when they made this movie initially, they announced it like, we're not going for anything. If it's an R movie, it's an R movie. Like, we're not gonna like censor our movie. Like, we're gonna do what we want to do. But then by the second trailer, they came out with a red band and a green band version. And like the red band version is like, this movie's rated R, like almost like you gotta think like and then like they started doing like Instagram trailers, like little like 6 to 30 second spots on Instagram that were like, this is an R-rated movie, like like, look how gory, like literally there was a trailer that said, look how gory this is, and it would just show like a montage of all like the really gory scenes in the movie. So it's like they just took the wrong lessons from other successful movies.
Yeah,
and I do agree that I like David Harbour as Hellboy. I think if you took
they wrote a better movie.
Yeah, if you took this exact Hellboy and the actor, because David Harbour is a great actor, and you put him in the 2004, it would have been fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a problem with David Harbour, and I think this design for Hellboy is a better design. But the movie is, it's a mess.
Hot garbage.
I'm going to be real honest with you guys. I fell asleep.
I fell asleep too.
On drugs when I
We're all
watched this
together.
movie. So I had surgery the day before I watched this movie, and the next day I thought I felt fine, and then I really didn't feel fine, so I popped a couple of painkillers when I got to the theater, and so I was kind of loopy, and honestly don't remember this movie a whole lot. But what I remember is just,
maybe it wasn't the drugs. It wasn't that much.
Yeah, because the parts I didn't fall asleep on, I don't remember.
I liked the first. I think I liked the first like 20-30 minutes of the film. Like, I liked that in this world, Hellboy is a known entity.
Yeah.
Well, that's like in the comics,
right?
Yeah.
So I
he's
like
not
that.
hidden.
Yeah, go ahead.
They
Go ahead. Go
ahead.
Alex.
Alex, in the first one, they made it more like Men in Black. That's essentially what it is, because Men in Black was popular. They made it where it's like it's a secret organization you don't know about it. And this one, it's more true to the comics because like Hellboy has been around since World War II, and everyone just accepts him. They're like, oh yeah, that's that
Right.
guy.
And I liked that scene where he's like looking for his friend at the beginning. No, god damn it! Stop it! They're like clawing the couch.
God damn it!
That's what I say when I can't find my friends.
So he's trying to find his friend, and his friend is like a luchador for some reason. So he's like,
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Professor Broom is like, hey, you shouldn't be there. You should be like somewhere else. You're grounded. And he's like, I need to find my friend. Like he's a valued agent. He's like, you just get drunk with him, kind of thing. But like he's like fighting his friend, and we learned that this Hellboy is a little awkward and not as sure of himself and not as good with his powers and his strength because he breaks like 5 iPhones in this movie, and he's fighting his friend who became a vampire, and like he didn't mean to kill his friend. He just got angry and threw his friend way too hard, and his friend ended up getting impaled on a spike,
on the
kind of thing. But I think where I really noticed the movie was bad was they right after that scene, and like the bureau comes to pick him up. And you see these like helicopters flying to this mountain. The helicopters looked like a video game cutscene.
Yeah.
It was so fucking bad.
All the CG
The
was
CG
so bad.
was in this movie was the weakest part of anything. Like all the practical stuff looked fine.
Like Man Bear Pig.
Yeah, Man Bear.
Yeah,
Pig.
Man Bear Pig looks great.
I think he looked. Yeah, he looked good, and Hellboy's. All of his skin and hair and everything looked really good. But like.
I think Hellboy looked incredible. I think this design, because the thing is, this design doesn't look like David Harbour and Red Face. Where
I actually didn't know until like the week we were going to see the movie that it was David Harbour. I didn't put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, it doesn't look like him. Where the original Hellboy, it's Ron Perlman and Red Face. And like
I kind of like that though, because like
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I like the design of like what they had with Ron Perlman because like he kind of looks like Hellboy.
No, he does. He has like a similar jaw and everything. I did like how he had like the runes kind of carved in his arm and everything, like going up on his shoulder.
And
I like his muscles looked like foam muscles, like they were shaped like trapezoids.
That's
kind of thing. Like they had like hard angles. Like they didn't look like muscles. It looked like Ron Perlman in a suit. And as much as the second movie is great, like I just watched the second Hellboy movie, The Golden Army, last night. It gets even worse in the second movie because Ron Perlman clearly didn't work out as much for the second movie. Yeah. So his arms are kind of small and everything. Like he looks weird and he's super short. So it's just kind of like it's a little off. Like when you compare it to the David Harbour version, who David Harbour is a monster of a man. I've actually met him. He's super nice in person.
Say that about everybody.
Most people are genuinely nice. I could tell you about some assholes, but like I don't want to, I've met a lot of celebrities in my days working retail and whatnot. But David Harbour is like a really cool guy, and he's a beast of a man. He's fucking huge. Like he looks big in like Stranger Things and this, but he looks bigger in person. Like he's a massive man, and like he's a much more intimidating Hellboy. And he got ripped for this movie, and there is still some muscle padding on him, but it looks much more realistic. Like this looks like a demon sent from hell to cause the apocalypse
with a lot of back hair
and
well, I like that he also had like a bit of a muffin top, and when they cut to the shots in the back, you see that little
well, because he doesn't have to actually...
He had some chicken legs though, and that really bothered me. Like his legs were so much smaller than the rest of his body.
When did you actually see his legs?
It was mostly at the end when he's like standing with his shirt off and the huge horns.
They gave him
he's got a huge
demon
head,
legs, right?
The cloven feet. Yeah,
I think
they did.
I think I forgot.
They did.
Fell asleep on that.
Well, that was a little weird when he had the, and I didn't understand this part. So I guess the crux of this movie, the overall plot, is Mila Jovovich is a some sort of queen who was not. Queen? Yeah, she was the Blood Queen who was not the traditional sorceress that Morgan Le Fay, who King Arthur normally fights. This turned out to be a King Arthur movie, which is kind of strange. But King Arthur normally fights Morgan Le Fay. In this, he fights her, and they end up like cutting off her head, and it's only no mortal weapon can kill her. But Merlin got, King Arthur Excalibur, of course. So Excalibur cuts off her head, her arms, her legs. They put the head and body all over the place. I don't know why they wouldn't just like stab the sword through her brain and just end it. But whatever. They do that, and Man Bear Pig is mad at Hellboy specifically because he is a changeling that was replaced with a girl who we get to know later, left by a fairy. And then I guess if you're a changeling and you get caught, you're stuck in your like shitty form. And he's just mad, so he goes to get Mila Jovovich to create the apocalypse to get revenge on Hellboy.
Yeah, I feel like it was a bit of overkill to end the entire world just to get back at Hellboy.
What
they did is that
do?
they combined some stories from the comic book. So that
was
one,
apparent, Alex. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they crammed way too much into this.
Like 30 different stories.
It's too,
like,
yeah.
What sticks?
We'll string them together somehow.
Yeah,
Man,
so,
bear
I mean,
pig.
Man, bear, pig.
I think I've only honestly read literally one issue of Hellboy or something like that. I've read like one thing, so I'm not versed in the Hellboy comics at all. But it seriously seemed like they crammed the entire history of Hellboy into one movie. So like we get the Apocalypse thing, we get the Blood Queen thing, we get Damio. The only thing we don't get
Baba
is
Yaga.
Abe Sapien, which this movie has like 3 endings. Like, so there's like right after the movie fades to black, we get it ramps right back up 6 months later, and we get like a cut
Lobster
scene.
Johnson.
Then we get a mid-credit scene, and then we get a post-credit scene. So we had
I
like
don't think we
3.
stayed for that.
No,
Yeah,
we
there's
did.
3 scenes. There's 3 scenes after the movie like ends. It's weird, but it seems so. They had like Damio and his whole thing shape-shifting into a Manguar, and
Yep.
then they had Alice, and then they had Dr. Broom dying. They also had like the other, brother sister agency of the Bureau for Paranormal Investigation.
Oh yeah, the British ones.
Yeah, who tried to kill him, and then like the giant. Like, there's so many things
Baba
going
Yaga.
on in this movie.
And her
Like
walking.
Baba Yaga.
Yeah.
Like, and then like the post-credit scene, which I guess you guys didn't see, is they don't actually show it, but Baba Yaga's back, and there's a person that we don't actually see talking, and he says something along the lines of like, he keeps dying over and over again, and he just wants it to be an end, and he needs to get rid of Hellboy. And I honestly forgot who the character is, but it's a pretty major character. So like this movie has teased essentially 3 stories for a sequel already. For a movie that did not do well in opening week. Like they
I think they
actually
made
cut
17
showtimes
million.
the second week.
Did they really?
Yeah, there was theaters in my area actually reduced screenings for the following week, because I had friends who had tickets to go see it like the second week that it came out, and like those showings got canceled, and they had to like pick new showings.
Wow.
Yeah, so this movie I don't think is going to get a sequel.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Just judging from like both the Rotten Tomatoes, the general reception of it, and the how it's performed. It got beat by that movie where like I forget who the actress was, but like some actress gets turned into a little kid. And
Little?
Little. And then the chick from Insecure, that one show on HBO, just as like her sassy aunt or something.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
beat Hellboy the first weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, so
So does it deserve a reboot?
I don't know. Well, the thing that's weird is just like I think I really like David Harbour. I even liked his delivery on some of the jokes, even though I think they fell flat. I think it's exactly what Cody said, where with Ian McShane, he acted his ass off. He did the best he can, but he clearly had shitty director. We had 2 American actors doing British accents, which was weird. So Alice is American, and then Daniel Day Kim, I think, is American as well, playing British people. And there was some like controversy around this. Ed Skrein, who's in the newer Transporter movies, he's in Deadpool. He was recast in Game of Thrones as one of Daenerys' love interests. He was originally cast as Damio, as the guy who turns into the Manguar, and when he found out that that character is primarily Asian, and he stepped out of the role, and that's how Daniel Day Kim got it.
Well, it's
But
because
weird
like
that-
people kept complaining. They're like, "Why
well, no,
is
but
he
he
being
as soon as he
whitewashed?"
found out, it was like
Yeah.
they announced it, and then like the next day he was like, "I had no idea that he was Asian. I'm on your guys' side. I'll step out of the role." Which I think is impressive.
yeah,
Like,
that's, I mean,
good for him.
whether
He dodged a bullet. in that.
whether it was because he truly felt that way, or if it was going to be a PR nightmare. Either way, it's good that he stepped out.
Right.
Yeah.
Because,
Oh,
unfortunately, we do have that problem in Hollywood.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, he did dodge a bullet, but also he hasn't been in very many good things either. So
Well, he left Game of Thrones, so he doesn't have a great.
we
track
left Game
record.
of Thrones specifically for the Transporter movies.
Yeah, exactly. Which
Were they movies? I thought it was like a TV show or something.
No, he did the movie, like the Transporter Returns or whatever
Oh,
it was.
I
He was
definitely
in-
did not see that.
and the other guy that Baba Yaga was talking to was Koschei the Deathless, or Kosuke.
Yeah.
Kosuke.
I'm confused. So Damio wanted to kill Hellboy the entire movie, but then by the end he just changes. Like he creates like a magic bullet,
I remember that.
and then he says something along the lines like when they give him the magic bullet, they're like, you need to make sure it's a kill shot in the heart or the head, and he says something like Hellboy's brain is too small, so I'm gonna go for the heart or something like that.
Too small
Yeah.
a target.
But then he just decides to like turn into the Mangwar at the end, and he helps fight the giant Man Bear Pig because Man Bear Pig gets bigger by the end of the movie,
and then he gets smaller.
and then he gets like teeny tiny to the point where he just shrinks.
Implodes.
And the thing, I guess I brought up the King Arthur thing and then completely went away from it. So by the end of the movie, we find out that Hellboy is the spawn of a demon and King Arthur's daughter or granddaughter. So he's like part human. So he can use Excalibur, which is supposed to be a weapon for good, which is why it was able to kill Mila Jovovich, right?
Yep.
So, but they say when he gets the sword, it causes the apocalypse. So when he pulls the sword out, everything gnarly starts happening. Like he becomes like the horned version with the fire crown, and all these giant creatures come out and start just murdering everybody in like England. You just see like one that has giant spear feet, like stepping on people and kebabbing them, and you see one guy gets his face ripped off by another monster. It's all gratuitous, and then he cuts off Mila Jovovich's head, and then he puts the sword back in the stone, and then all of it comes back. Why does it's him inherently getting a sword that is a weapon for good cause the like have that shit start happening?
Because magic.
And he's
I
like,
mean-
I chose, and he like cuts her head off, and it's like, well, if he had the choice to be good, then the sword shouldn't. That is a good weapon that killed evil. Has only killed evil.
Well, maybe
It doesn't make
maybe-
any sense.
I don't know why. I don't know why I'm defending this movie.
I think it was like his intention.
But I think maybe I could see it if the sword releases the whoever grabs its full potential. In King Arthur's, sense, it turned him into the King
goodest of
Arthur,
good.
the goodest of good guy. With
Got it.
Hellboy, his max potential is a demon king who destroys the world. So
I
maybe
guess so.
like I don't know why I'm defending it, but
The
that's
other
the only
thing that-
reason I
You're
could
just trying to
see,
reason.
The
I'm just
other
trying to
thing that
connect
came
the
up in
dots.
this movie that I actually kind of liked, and they touch on it briefly in the second Hellboy, and like very, very briefly in the second Hellboy. He has this thing where it's because Mila Jovovich is like, hey, if you become evil, I'll totally suck your dick, kind of thing. Like she's totally like, I'll totally bang you, and we could be like great together. And then she's like, why are we killing all the monsters? And then like he's at the dinner table with Professor Broom, and he's just like, hey, why are we killing all the monsters? Like maybe the monsters wouldn't want to kill us if we weren't killing them all the goddamn time.
I saw the
Good
secret.
thing.
I think
They
I think
definitely
it was
do us.
done way better in the sequel than
So-
this one.
Well, in the sequel,
Because like the
it's kind
sequel,
of absurd.
it happens with like that giant frost, the
Nope, wrong.
vegetable guy.
Yep,
because
okay,
he's
there you
like,
go. It was
oh,
the Earth Elemental, who's the last of his
yeah.
kind.
He's like, he's the last of his kind. And then they also talk about it when he like when I forgot the prince's name. It's been a while since I've seen it, but he's like telling him like, oh, like why are you picking the like that's the whole thing. It's
Okay,
like why are you
that
picking
was
the
one
humans
scene.
and him.
I just watched it last night. That was literally 30 seconds in the entire movie, where he's got the baby and he's like throwing the baby around with his tail and everything, and he he's about to kill the Earth Elemental, and the little gas man played by Seth MacFarlane was like, "Do it, shoot it," and then the prince guy's like, "Hey, he's the last of his kind. Why are you teaming up with humans and not like magical monsters and stuff like that?" And Hellboy is like thinking about it, and then the monster starts to get up, and he starts to smash things again, so he kills it. But that's it. Like, it doesn't come back up later at all. Like, it comes up a couple of times in this movie where at least he's having a struggle kind of thing. So I do like that it was a thread in the movie. I think there's a good movie here. I think Hellboy has the potential to be a great franchise. It's clearly, a 15-year-old franchise which has some dated CGI and everything. Like, it's dated a little bit, but it still is a good movie. Clearly, something can be done with this character. But yeah, this movie, the CGI was just so bad. Like the giants that he had to fight,
It was just all over
like
the place.
the
this
fight
movie.
itself with the 3 giants was
was
cool, but it
just
looked like a
looked bad.
cartoon.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah,
liked that this
100%.
Hellboy wasn't indestructible. He was kind of like
He got stabbed
he's kind of like a
lot.
really strong Wolverine, where it's like he's incredibly strong. Like he can pick up
He got
ridiculous
fucked
things.
up with those spears. I
But
thought
yeah,
he
he
was
got
gonna
fucked.
die.
But I'm sure they're like magical spears, or whatever. But he got stabbed and everything. Like it shows that he's tough, but he's not invulnerable. Where the other Hellboy, like he's going up against what they're calling gods and comes out unscathed.
Yeah, and I think there are good moments. The Giants, I think, was great, like you said. I also really liked. I guess it wasn't really a mid-credit scene, but it was the one at the end where they're like, "Oh, the team's together." Where like I forget what song it was, but I think it was the exact same song from Deadpool, and when they're all like
jeez.
fighting each other, turning into man.
X gonna give it to you. No, it
Yeah,
wasn't
it
that.
wasn't. But anyway, it was that scene was good. I'm like, where was that the whole rest
That
of
was
the movie?
really rad. And then they tease Abe Sapien.
Yeah, exactly. And it was so there's good parts, but and I feel like this movie, I read a couple things about how the producer and the producers and the director were like
Did
butting
not
heads
get
a
along.
lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really
Well,
ultimately.
then the director started spreading rumors that David Harbour like walked off set refusing to do extra takes, but then like the crew and some of the other cast was like that didn't happen. So it's like I think the director just didn't get along with anybody.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, David Harbour was down to do extra takes because half of this movie's dialogue was ADR.
Right.
Like so much of the dialogue was people off screen or looking away from the camera. It was ridiculous.
I agree that last scene where they're like taking on that fortress or to get Abe Sapien was rad, and I agree. Like, I think it's unfortunate that a sequel wouldn't get made for this movie because I think getting Abe Sapien in the mix like could be really cool. I think they set up some interesting stuff for a sequel. It's just it wasn't deserved.
Right.
And
There's so much
there's
unnecessary stuff in the movie too.
and like the weird. We didn't even bring up like the weird worm ghosts. So a couple times in this movie, Alice, who's a median, who randomly at a random point when they're fighting a bunch of zombies finds out she has a power that she can instantly just kill zombies by taking their spirits away. But if she needs to talk to the dead, like she can sense the dead, but when she needs to actually talk to a recently dead person, like she goes into like a catatonic state, and then like what looks like a tapeworm flies out of her mouth and like morphs into like
it's cool though because like if you seen like I used to really, my family is really into like the weirdly paranormal stuff. I'm just gonna throw that out there, but there's like photos of people that like were possessed or something like that, and they're like spewing out like ectoplasm, and that's where that comes from.
No, I get it, but it just the CG on that was so bad. Like the weird dead Ian McShane and the weird dead Asian blind psychic.
And I feel like the Ian McShane scene especially, like he was really trying to make it like that emotional, heartfelt moment. And I'm like, does he even realize how this is going to look in the actual movie?
And that's the thing. It's like you're right. He was acting the shit out of this movie. Same thing. David Harbour was acting. He was putting his all into this movie.
Yeah, he was
really
into
trying
every line and stuff.
I didn't really like the talk though that like Ian McShane gave to Hellboy. It was just
it wasn't very.
It was also
but
just
the thing
way
is, I
too
think
long.
that it was just dialogue. Like Ian McShane delivered that shitty dialogue. Like there's no way you could have done that any better than what he did.
It's true. Yeah, it's totally true. It's
like when
so poorly.
it's like building IKEA furniture. Like you're really doing the best of what you have.
If
Like
you do the
have
best
these
possible
shitty
job
pictures.
you can, you still get a piece of shit coffee table.
Yeah. It's passable. That's really all. Ian McShane is the IKEA of actors. Well, no. This movie is the IKEA of movies.
Yeah, exactly.
The IKEA coffee table.
I mean, if you have a couple hours to kill.
Is there anything else that stood out to you guys? Like points you want to touch on?
I feel like there was a lot of unnecessary stuff. Like Merlin could have been cut entirely from the movie.
Oh, yeah,
Lo-
absolutely.
dude,
That
Lobster
made no
Johnson.
goddamn
Cut
sense.
What
entirely.
was that?
Yeah, so Merlin basically is the point where they're like, you need to get the Excalibur. And I guess, which is weird, is they were saying, like, if he got the sword from Merlin, then everything would have been okay. But because he got the sword from the Blood Queen, everything was bad.
What?
Yeah, because he's like,
But
he
he
goes to get the sword, and Merlin, he's like, no, I don't want it. And Merlin's like, I just used all my magic. I'm fucked. Now we're never going to be able to
That's
defeat the
dumb.
Blood Queen. But then the sword just appeared with the Blood Queen.
Yeah, it was
So,
just
yeah.
under
Yeah.
that church.
Yeah,
whole
you
time.
could have got. You're right. You could have cut her. The other thing that I thought
He
was
used
weird
all his
is-
power to move it, like, within the same country.
Right. So there's a point where he's talking to the Blood Queen and is like, "I'm a Capricorn and you're fucking nuts." It's not true. You know what? He's a Libra.
Ooh.
So in the comic books, it's said that his birthday is like October 5th or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And this movie had a lot more involvement with Mike Mignola. He should have known better, and
Yeah.
I don't like that. That's a huge oversight.
Of all the things to pick on. Also, Lobster Johnson, as cool of a character as he is, like, what was the point of having him in this movie? Like,
I don't know.
like, you brought him back at the end, and you had the little scene at the beginning, but he didn't do anything to the movie, really. Like,
I mean, the way
understand.
he was killing people at the beginning was cool, but yeah, it kind of takes away from like the opening from the beginning movie where it was just men
Yeah.
taking on the occult kind of thing. Where this, like, they basically had a superhero, and the whole thing was Hellboy was supposed to be kind of like the genesis of the whole paranormal stuff in the world kind of thing. Like, they started research, like the first movie says, they started researching the occult, but they didn't really know anything
They
was
didn't
real
have any
for sure
solid proof, yeah.
until they saw Hellboy. Where in this version, it's like, well, no, there's like this guy who has is superhuman fast and strong and everything. Like, yeah, it does kind of take away from it. I agree.
Yeah, it was so. I mean, I think some of the creature design, I'll say, is good. Like Baba Yaga looked gross, and like
Yeah, absolutely.
and the demons at the end too, as brief as they were, I felt like they looked good. So there was little hints of good stuff in there.
What's weird is we also got Rasputin at the very beginning of the movie, and we also got Cronin at the very beginning of the movie,
Yep.
like just flashes.
And then the guy with the 3D glasses, Nazi glasses.
Yeah, that's from the comics.
Yeah, this movie's a mess.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, it's all over
I
the
was
place.
originally planning on going to see it again yesterday just because I couldn't really remember it.
You just want to.
And I ended up not being able to because we had like a laundry emergency here, and I ended up having to stay home and do laundry. And I was like, this is fine. I'll just watch the Golden Army instead.
Yeah,
And I
much
think that was a better
choice.
use of my time.
Yeah.
So I think we can all agree it was a no.
Yeah, this didn't need to be
Oh, I can't wait for the
the
sequel.
remake.
Yeah,
I just
it's
don't
terrible.
because I like the character so much. Like I liked Hellboy himself in this movie. And I liked like his little conflict with his dad and how like for a minute he didn't trust his dad because his dad sent him to England to help that other bureau and they tried to kill him
Right.
kind of thing. But
That's
I
actually how I felt when I first watched Hellboy. To be honest, like I really liked that universe. So like then I got into the comics, but it's different. Like Guillermo Del Toro really, it's Hellboy, but it's not the same Hellboy.
the
in
first
comics.
one's closer to the comics than the second one. The second one just becomes like folklore. It just becomes like a Guillermo Del Toro movie with Hellboy in it.
Which I don't mind, but like Hellboy in the comics, he's more like a. He's not like really it's not a coming of age story. He's more like a grizzled character that's like been through it. So he's
you
kind of tired.
Come in midway through his career, kind of thing.
Right.
And this
And,
one,
like,
he's like.
I
kind of
want to go and read some Hellboy shit and get it because I've never have, and I think the world's interesting, and I think there's something there. It's just unfortunate that we went from the Guillermo del Toro movies to this.
Yeah, definitely. Once we know how good it could be, and then going to a shittier version, I mean, I think that's tough. And the problem is that the bigwigs in Hollywood are going to see this movie and how poorly it's performed, and they're like, well, obviously people don't like Hellboy, and that's not really the case.
It's just it looked bad. Like the first trailer for this movie, I can't remember what it was, but they did like a weird cover of a 60s song. I almost want to be like Imagine Me and Me and You, like that kind of song. Like, it was something weird, and it just like the first trailer made the movie look stupid. Like the first trailer made the movie look awful, and I was like, this looks really bad. And then the second trailer, I was like, okay, no, this looks a little bit better. But then just between that, like I knew going into the theater that this probably wasn't going to be good. I went in with low expectations, hoping it would be good, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I was hoping that.
No,
I was hoping everyone was just kind of being too hard on it because they didn't like Hellboy, and then we got there. And we're
Or
like,
that they just
oh,
really
no.
wanted a Guillermo del Toro one, and
Yeah.
they're not getting it.
That's what I was afraid of. Is that if I was being biased, but I still didn't really like this movie.
Guillermo
I
did
went in
this-
wanting to like it,
Yeah.
not expecting to, and it was exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Huge pile of shit.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate.
All right. So, Cody,
Thanks for joining us,
yeah.
Cody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
where can our listeners find you? So nerds with friends. What are all your handles on social medias?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. You can check us out at nerdswithfriendspodcast.com. And then if you just search Nerds with Friends on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, you can find us pretty easily. And then on Instagram and Facebook, because you're limited to how many letters you can do, it's Nerds with Friend with no S at the end.
I saw that. I thought that was strange.
Yeah, I know. It's just Nerds with one singular friend.
One friend.
But yeah. Thanks, guys, for having me. It was super fun.
No problem.
And I really enjoy your podcast too. So it's really
Thanks.
great. Though I think you were a little hard on Jonathan Kent in the Superman episode.
No, we weren't. About anything, we weren't hard enough.
I was giving Double D and Alex a hard time about that last night because I love Kevin Costner so much.
I like Kevin Costner too, but that doesn't mean his character was shitty. Wasn't shitty.
Yeah,
He's just so dumb. He should have let him
telling
It's
save
not
him.
Kevin Costner's
that's what
fault.
inspired him to be Superman, like his Uncle Ben
Is
moment.
having a shitty father.
Yeah. No, he was a good dad. He was set.
No, he wasn't. He was a shitty dad. He was like, you should have let that bus full of kids
Just
die.
watch me die, my son. Yeah.
What they don't show you, if you saw the extended cut, all those kids were shitheads. So they deserve to die in that river.
Okay. So thanks for listening to. I almost said ruin my childhood. Oh my god, my brain does not work. Thanks for listening to Remake Rewind. You guys can check us out everywhere. MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram. It's great. Check us out. You can also, if you want to ask us a question that we'll answer online or on air, you can call 64 MDXpods 1. Yeah, we're trying to get that off the ground. But check us out on patreon.com/MDXpods. And thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Later.
Bye.